You are now listening to Talk Your Jits podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Talk Your Jits podcast. This podcast is, as the name implies, all about jiu-jitsu. I'm your host, Lamar Smith, and today's guest is a 3-stripe brown belt who trains at Franklin Jiu-Jitsu Club located in Franklin, Indiana. Ladies and gentlemen, Jason Ramey.
Hey, how are you? Thanks for having me on, man.
Oh man, no problem, man. The pleasure is all mine.
Yeah, so I've been listening to the podcast you put out so far. Trying to study, check the format, and get a feel of it. And I like what you're doing here, man. It's good stuff.
Oh man, thank you. I've been getting a lot of positive feedbacks about the episode so far, and I was like, man, the ones that I got coming up is gonna be so good.
Yeah, I think so. The one I think you dropped one this morning. I've gotten it started. Haven't had a chance to finish it yet, but I think the first three, good stuff.
Thank you. Well, yeah, man. Once again, I do appreciate you coming on to the show, and yeah, let's give the people what they want, man. Just go ahead and let's share your jiu-jitsu journey.
Yeah, so I mean, funny thing, like I wasn't an athlete in school. I didn't do any competitive sports, no formal sports. A little bit of football in middle school. Just to be completely honest, my kids will hear this at one point, but I was more interested in partying and just trying to get out of school. Lowest grades didn't matter to me. Passing is passing.
Right.
So I didn't get involved in a lot of that. So right out of high school, as a matter of fact, on my birthday, my 18th birthday, I was on a plane to Army basic training. I did the Army thing, came back, worked force a little bit, and then honestly, as I started to mature. I was actually much older when I started to work out and get into fitness and just want to get in shape. I got hired as a full-time firefighter and kind of, let myself go. It was unfortunately, a lot of guys do. They get on the job, find the recliner and, just sit around and get out of shape. So I did that. Then kind of wanted to turn that around. So I started getting into just fitness in general, weightlifting, and tried all kinds of different things. And just, was a fan of martial arts and MMA and boxing and so forth. And so I did a couple of the way these things transpired is kind of interesting. But I did a couple of here in Indianapolis area. They do the police and fire slugfest shows. It's firefighters box police officers, 1 minute rounds, 3 1-minute rounds, headgear, standard boxing gloves. But they do it. It's for Make-A-Wish Foundation, charity fundraiser. So
that's cool.
Yeah, it's been going on. Kurt Spivey here, IMPD officer, he runs that. Done it for several years. It's a big event here locally. But so I got onto that and did that twice. Loved it. Won one, lost one, both by decision. Just again, one of those low stress competitions. Everybody wins. It's for charity. And then the more I started to get involved in watching MMA and things like that, I thought, man, I want to try that. I want to check it out. Mm-hmm. So. Through some mutual friends, I had a guy I went to school with. I'm talking to him, and he's like, "Yeah, my cousin is he's a boxing instructor in Indianapolis. Works with these guys like Chris Lytle and a couple other people." And I'm like, "Oh, who? I'm sorry. Yes, I know that guy. I know of him." So anyway, he got me in touch with Indie Boxing and Grappling in downtown Indianapolis, where Chris Lytle, Matt Mitrione, some of those other guys were training. And so I started going up there to train, just as a hobby at first. And the more I got into it, I'm like, man, I love this. And it was straight MMA. And at that time, I mean, it was very hard, grueling rounds. You were doing a lot of stand-up, getting on the ground. And then it was, MMA gloves, punches, and then trying to get into the submission. So after a little bit in there, Pat McPherson, the coach up there, I said, hey, you know what, coach, I think I want to fight. I want to get into a fight. I want to see if, I'm training. Is this, like you said, I've listened to some of your other guests on there. I was in the same situation. I'm training. I'm feeling pretty good. But how do I test it? You know what I mean? How do I get out there and see what, do I think I'm decent? Do I think I'm getting better? How do I prove that? Mm-hmm. So what came about, he's like, all right, man, we'll keep an eye out for something, and all the while, keep in mind, I mean, I'm married, I've got kids, and, me getting into a cage to fight for a hobby wasn't on my wife's, a high point list of her things that she would like me to do. But we worked it out. But at the end of the day, Pat came back to me and he's like, hey, man, got a show coming up at the 8 Second Saloon. It's a Midwest Fight Series. I think it'd be a good show for you. Your progress is where it needs to be. Let's get you on that card. I'm like, all right, well, when is it? And he said July 19th. And I'm like, well, it was meant to be, if you ask me. So that's July 19th is my birthday. So,
oh, wow. So couldn't happen at a better time.
on my 37th birthday, that was, again, at this point, I'm 37. So on my 37th birthday, I stepped in and had my first MMA, first and only as it turned out, but I had an MMA fight. That's what I did for fun. My wife supported it. She was a nervous wreck, you know.
Of course.
She hit with the funniest part of this is the biggest part of the crowd that came to watch me was our church small group and people. So as you know, a lot of people are trying to get people out of the bars and into the churches. I did it the other way around. You know, I brought everybody from my church into the bar to watch me fight. But hey, when it was all said and done, you know, first round ended up getting a takedown, settled in, and at that time, amateur MMA in Indiana, you couldn't strike to the head when they were down, so it was all body shots or submissions. So just kind of beat on the guy for the full 3 minutes. Second round, he throws a lazy head kick. I dropped him, and I jumped on and ended up winning by a rear naked choke. Which,
nice.
When I watch it now and I watch it and see the pictures, I'm like, what horrible form. You know, I was completely unbelted and trained in MMA solely for, you know, a few months. But it was probably the most fun one of the funnest things and most exhilarating, I guess you might say, things that I've done. And I fell in love with the combative sports. Tried to get a couple more fights and had some opponents drop and things like that. And as far as amateur, it's just frustrating when you work hard and then you can't get a match. But fast forwarding a little bit, our church, you know, knowing that I was into that, we had a new pastor come in, an associate pastor named Dale Holzbauer, and he was actually a world level competitor in karate and striking and had done a ton of powerlifting back when he was younger. So he started an MMA program at our church, of all things, just mostly teaching kids and some of the younger people karate, some katas and kickboxing. And so he brought a couple guys in one night and said, hey, you know, these guys are going to come in and show us this jiu-jitsu thing. And I'm like, yeah, okay, yeah, I'm somewhat aware. Well, they bring Jay Hunsucker and Don Thomas, and both of these guys at the time are in their early to mid 60s. And these two guys came in, and you know, I'm still 220 or whatnot. They got a hold of me, and you know, similar to some of these other people that you've had on, I mean, just got ragdolled, and when it was over with, I'm like, I need more of this. You know what I mean? So so Jay was teaching an extracurricular jiu-jitsu class at Franklin College here, where we're based out of in Franklin, Indiana, as an elective. And he said, hey, you know, I need some more bodies in here to come in and help with demo and try to work with us. So after meeting me there, he invited me in. And so I ended up showing up at the college to train with him a little bit, and a couple other guys there. At the time, there's 4 to 6 of us maybe. Well, I mean, the word started getting out, and again, I fell in love with jiu-jitsu immediately. And he was like, okay, you need more than this. So we need to get you into an academy, and then you can still come and work with me on the side. So he steered me towards the Carlson Gracie Academy here in Indianapolis with Alan Stockman. So he got me into there, and I was there for 7 years, but still trained with Jay at the college. And we started to build our little core group of, we call them kind of side guys, because we had guys from all different academies here in the area that would still meet at the college for lunch. Is what we were doing. We were getting together 11:30, 12 o'clock, rolling for an hour or two. But anyway, so from that, we ended up getting to the point where the college said, hey, we got a little bit of liability. You're getting too many, people from the outside that aren't students or faculty. So you're going to have to shut this thing down. So we rented the second floor of a church building here in town, and we were there for about 2 years until the COVID thing hit, which shut everybody down. So, we floated and kept in contact for those few months, because we just kind of followed the rules. When Indiana shut down gyms and academies, we're like, yeah, let's follow suit. We're not official, we're just a hangout, but we'll see what we can do. So we shut down. Then when we reopened, there were other people in the area who started flooding in, whose maybe their academies didn't reopen, or they had gotten smaller, or whatever the situation is. But we ended up combining with another gym from a neighboring city here who had shut down completely during that, and weren't able to recover in their location. And we rented a small warehouse, started putting some stuff together, and then finally it just clicked one day. We're like, look, there's no academy in the city of Franklin. It's a mid-sized city just south of Indianapolis. We've got a couple in Greenwood, which is nearby, but like, hey, why isn't anyone doing jiu-jitsu here yet? And if somebody's going to, why not us? So we ended up locating a building, and so in June of 2020, we opened up our own academy now, which is that Franklin Jiu-Jitsu Club. And Jay, again, he's a black belt. He is the one who got all of us, most of us, into this sport here locally, and he is under Bruce Shepard out of Evansville. So that's who our black belt affiliation is with here in Franklin. And yeah, I mean, so that's the story of how we got to where we are now as far as our academy. And it's just been a wild ride, man, and just seeing how many people are jumping in on that. We've got kids coming in now. We are going from this handful of 4 to 6 people that were in the college, to we're 75 to 100 students now between kids and adults all together. It's just been awesome.
That is very, very awesome.
Yeah, I mean, so we've got guys who do the competitive level. We have guys that just do it for fun, and so yeah, I mean, we're trying to make this an environment to where everybody can come in and train together. Some of you guys are going to go a little harder when we're competing or getting ready to compete, and some aren't. But it's been huge, and it's a successful journey here for a lot of people. And what I love about it is one of my business partner, actually, and one of the guys I started training with at Stockman's, Scott Coxey. He actually has invested a lot of time and finances into making our gym what it is now, and it's one of those examples to where he and I are vastly different people that would have never met had I not stepped into this jiu-jitsu academy that he was a member of. And now here we are. He and I kind of heading up this program that's bringing this to so many other people that are like that. So that's one of the best things about this jiu-jitsu is it is for everybody.
It is. It definitely is for everybody. Yeah, all walks of life, man. You'd be surprised to find out who actually does jiu-jitsu nowadays.
Yeah. Like you said, it's becoming, with the social media and everything, more popular. Was it Keanu Reeves, some of the bigger names, and they've been training for years, and people are like, "Oh, well, he does this too." That's cool. And some people who had never heard of jiu-jitsu now are like, "Well, I'm gonna check it out because of these big names." But it's you're right, and that's the thing is, we've got in my academy alone, we've got local and state law enforcement officials. We've got federal probation officers, and it's nothing for them to be sitting over there rolling with a dude who had a rough past, a shady history, but he's got himself together now. You know what I mean? So just honestly, the cops and robbers almost in the room together, just coexisting under one thing that they have in common. It just shows you how people. We don't always have to be at each other, regardless of background, and there's always that one thing that can bring us together. And how crazy is it that it's trying to murder each other in a controlled environment, and then, like you said, slap, bump, shake hands, and see you tomorrow. So,
yeah, because we have a guy who currently trains. He's a prosecutor. One of my good training partners. And then we have a guy. He trains when he can, but he's a retired police officer as well. So. Yeah, you get all walks of life when it comes to jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, of all the things I tell people, I used to be like, all right, man, I got to go to the gym. Oh, man, I got to go run. I got to do this. There are very few times I recall, really feeling like I have to go hit, I've got to go do jiu-jitsu, man. And not being excited about it.
Yeah,
even though. I run the 5 a.m. class, so I'm in there 5 a.m. I get up at 4:15, hit the road. I'm at at my gym at 5 a.m. running that morning session 5 days a week. And I mean, everybody's like, "Man, doesn't that suck?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm not gonna lie to you. Getting up at 4:15 sucks." But the minute I get there, and over the past year, it would be nothing for me to sit there and be like, "Man, I don't know if anybody's gonna show up." New gym, new program, 5 a.m. And I would do one-on-one classes with people, or it would be 2 other guys show up. A lot of times, and then you fast forward to this morning, and we had 13 people on the mat this morning at 5 a.m.
Ooh,
everybody's
man, that sounds good.
One of our largest classes, and it's just because hey, I can get in and get this done at 5 a.m. even though I had to get up at 4 or whatever the case is. No matter what hits me at work today, you know what I mean. No matter when I get off work and my kids got this going on, or my wife forgot this, or whatever hits you. My training is in, 5 a.m. I'm by 6:30 this morning. I already got my jits in, and whatever hits me, I'm good now.
Yeah, you're more prepared for it.
Yeah. It's like, all right, so now I'm a little inconvenienced, but dude, I got my workout in. So that's one of the benefits, and I think why our 5 a.m. thing is growing now. The guys who Like for instance, I keep mentioning Jay. You're not even allowed to text or call Jay before 9 a.m. because he's a 74 or 73-year-old guy now and retired. But again, still on the mat. That's the thing, guys. He's fought cancer 3 times in his life and multiple other things, and still training and competing.
Nice.
You're talking about competition. I mean, the biggest competition I've had. I've gone out twice now to Vegas for World Masters, and this past time, unfortunately, he was sick again and wasn't able to go. But the first time I went in 2018, he and I, Scotty, and all these guys went out there together, and it's probably the most fun trip I've had in my life. I'm just short of my wife and I going to Jamaica. I mean, it was an amazing time to go out with your team and hit a competition that big, cheer each other on, and then just hang out afterwards. So the competing side of it, for those who are kind of like, oh, I don't know if I want to compete, the best advice I can give you is I have made my biggest competitions like vacations with my wife as well. Her and I have gone to Vegas together to, when I competed. I did the tap cancer out in Nashville a couple of years ago. We took another couple that aren't into jiu-jitsu whatsoever. They're just some good friends of ours. They tagged along for the ride, went to the competition, hung out, partied a little bit in Nashville afterwards. So, there's more to these competitions than the mat time. So,
yeah, definitely.
That's what a lot of people need to realize, that there's so many opportunities, man.
And it's so crazy to me because me and my wife, we're finally able to we're slowly catching up on things. So we were just planning for next year if we want to take a trip anywhere. And that's what I've been I literally been doing, the places that we've been thinking about going. I'm like, okay, how far am I from a jiu-jitsu school?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I tell you, that's the one thing I've been such a failure at, because when I first got into jiu-jitsu, I'm like, oh yeah, man, our first spring break, I'm looking up gyms, and I packed my gi and my belt and everything. And I'm going to tell you, I have still not once in 8 years of training managed to go train when I was on vacation. And I intended to, those first couple of years, and then I'm like, nah, I'm out. But that is, I know some people that do that. I mean, they travel, and every time they travel, they hit gyms, and I envy that, But we have turned some pretty big competitions into some vacations and trips with, my wife and I and some friends, and that's a good time.
Yeah, that sounds like a damn good time. But yeah, I'm always we'll look at, even if we're just going Ohio or somewhere that's not too far from Detroit, I'm still okay, if we get a room here, it's 10 minutes away from a gym, and okay, if we plan on going, let me call the gym first and make sure we can schedule some time and stuff like that. But even now, I get antsy when I'm not doing jiu-jitsu.
Oh, absolutely.
Because I had I taught class last night, and I was like, you know what, let's everybody, let's roll. And we did 3-minute rounds, and I think we had a good 4 or 5 rolls, and then came home, body sore, stiffed up from this excessive working out. But I was laying there as in pain, I want to go back.
Yeah.
I want to go back to the gym.
Yeah. And I mean, that's the benefit, again, I'm so blessed now to have, we've got it's a 3,000 square foot building. I got 1,600 feet of mat space, full weight rooms, some cardio equipment. We've built this over 3 years now. And the thing about it is it's still a hobby for us. So although, we wanted to do it right. So it's a registered business, we've got all the tax documentation, everything is legit. It's a legit business, but we're keeping our rates so low and packages so affordable, and all the money's going right back into just improving things. No one's doing this as a business right now. It is still a hobby. It's self-sustaining. We're paying the bills, putting some money back into improvements and things. But I think what continues to make the environment that we have at our gym so successful, and the reason it's growing so quickly, is we are approaching it as a fun sport atmosphere and not a business atmosphere. I have to take it as seriously as I have to make sure the bills are paid. But outside of that, man, it's just, I'm in there, I go 5 a.m. A lot of times I'll head back. If I do more instruction than I do rolling at 5 a.m., because we do Wednesday, Friday is live. Monday, Tuesday, Thursday are techniques on the 5 a.m. class. So on those instructional days, I'll go back at 11:30 and catch some of these lunch break guys just to try to get some live rounds in. Because like you said, I'll be there, but I'll leave there going, man, I really didn't hit it very hard. This here, I'm almost, I did it, but I'm a little unfulfilled, if you will, from that session. So I'll go back at 11 and, hit it real hard with some tough dudes. And then I'm like, there we go. That's better. You know what I mean? And now my day's done.
Because
so yeah,
No, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I say yeah. Without rolling, like you said, even in a matter of hours, sometimes you're like, man, I need to get back. I gotta go.
I know, right? Like we just get done, like bodies, you're just like drenched in sweat. You're like, I got another good 3 rounds. Let's
Yeah,
just see what
yeah.
happens. But my instructor, he's like that too. He has multiple businesses and he looks at jujitsu as, he has a strong passion for it even to this day. He loves it and he's like, long as the doors are able to stay open, I'm cool.
Yeah, 100%. Right.
And we like and we work together as well, and he's like, man, we got some he got because like in the back of the building where we at, he has like his like extra mats and stuff, and he's like, man, we should turn one of these rooms back here into a to get some rolls in on lunch break.
Yeah,
And I
right,
looked
right.
at him and he looked at me. I'm like, hey, I got my bag in the car.
Well,
Like we could definitely
that's
do this.
man, that's funny because again, so I'm a career firefighter, but I was the fire chief for 8 years at this department where I'm at, and
Hmm.
one of our police officers who trains with me at the gym, he's one of the guys who got me in there early on too. Justin Griggs, he's a giant dude. He's golly, I mean, he's 285, 6'4", something like that. But the nicest dude you'll ever like. We always say, I'm like, he's just the friendliest guy that destroys you. You feel so you get beat up, and he's not mean about it. But anyway, he came across an old piece of wrestling mat, I mean, years ago. And he's like, hey, let's do this. So we ended up having a little bit of we call it the calisthenics area, in the basement of the firehouse. Just it was the same thing. We're going to have a handful of hand selected guys that I know I can trust. We'll get a little bit, warm up rounds and work on this stuff. But yeah, I mean, when you can, that's another thing about jujitsu, man. You got a pair of trunks and a t-shirt. We can do something. Yeah, we can roll today. That's fine. If I tear
Yeah.
these clothes up, we'll move on. But yeah, we did that here at the firehouse for a few years too. Just and it was again just me and a couple of guys that were training elsewhere with some police officers. So it's kind of disguised as training. It was all well intentioned, but some of the best times we had, was those, like you said, we were in no academy whatsoever. Just had a piece of mat here and a couple of dudes that wanted to work out.
Yeah, man. It's just that freedom. Like that freedom. Like I don't need a lot of space. Just give me, a little bit of space in the corner, man, and some mats, and you won't see me for like 3 hours.
Right, absolutely.
So yeah, cause like I see like videos online, and this one guy in particular, I have to actually try to find his actual page, but I guess he does like contract work or some of the sort or construction work, and they'll be rolling in like just dirt and gravel and whatever they at. Like I'm like, man, that sounds so fun, so dangerous, but so
Yeah,
fun, so fun.
yeah. Oh, for sure.
So are you still competing? Like, are you still competing now?
So I mean, yes and no. I don't have anything on the books right now, and I have not. I've competed quite a bit. I did a lot of local tournaments. Again, just like most everybody. When I first started, I'm like, yeah, man, I'm going to do this. So I mean, I hadn't been training very long at all. Jumped into my first. We had a local circuit here, Extreme Grappling Open. So I jumped into that. It was funny because again, so here I am. I'm 38 years old. I'm new at jujitsu. Don't really think I'm that good, but my guys, Jay's like, yeah, man, you need to compete. So I signed up and do this Extreme Grappling Open. I just register in the adult division because, hey, I'm an adult, right? I don't know, whatever. So I go in. Yeah, I walk into the adult division, 38 years old, and some 20-year-old white belt wrestler just mops me up. And I'm like, all right. So, but it was funny, too, because I just said this the other day. I'm like, that's the best thing, in my opinion, as far as jiu-jitsu goes. It's the greatest moment I ever had was getting destroyed in that first tournament
Uh huh.
because at that point, I really felt like I had an option to go, all right, I'm done with this jiu-jitsu. That's stupid. I thought I was decent at it, and clearly I'm not. Or to go, no, man, I'm going to get better at this and do this again. And I went down that, yeah, let's improve and see where we're at. So,
Oh
and
yeah.
I literally, from that point on, I started taking it very seriously and I started winning. I mean, local stuff, I did very well in local tournaments around here, all through white belt, blue belt, purple belt. I started to compete a little less. And that was towards that COVID stuff came in like the later end of my purple belt. But
Mm-hmm.
I went in 2018 as a blue belt. I went to the World Masters and I got third in my division. And then I went last year again to World Masters as a brown belt for the first time, and I ended up getting third again. So, so I have managed a medal twice at the World Masters, and again I did tap cancer out in Nashville. I won that in my division, and so now moving forward, I will tell you, I will probably focus more on IBJJF tournaments. I really like the format. I like that it's, and I've heard, your story and some others that you've talked to. These other tournaments, as well intentioned as they are, I'd love to see them grow more. But when you really work hard to get prepared for tournaments and you show up with no division or no, nobody in your brackets, or they move stuff around, it's very frustrating. And,
It
and sometimes
is.
it has, and it's an excuse. I mean, I'll admit it, but it does have a tendency to sort of, shred your game plan, and I feel give you a different approach to it. That's just my personal view. So with the IBJJF stuff, I have found that they are large enough and popular enough that it's generally you're going to get a few matches. You know what I mean? So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
they're the gi. You got to make sure your everything fits properly. They're going to inspect you. They're a little more strict. You hear a lot of horror stories about how stringent they are, but I think that structure also contributes to their success. So, I mean, I've had, and I would say I've done a lot of local small stuff. There's a lot of good ones, but the IBJJF and the Tap Cancer Out are the two programs that I competed in that I felt were the best ran, that I got the most matches for my age, size, and rank. So just to,
Yeah.
throw that out there for people that are looking.
Yeah, definitely shout out to Tap Out Cancer, man. Cause that was literally the first tournament I did last year, because they came to Detroit as well.
Yeah, yeah.
And so yeah, it was so cool, man. Like, everybody I talked to, the staff was cool. The coordinators there was cool. Yeah, I didn't have any bad. I can't say anything bad about them, because they did
Right.
everything. They did everything right. So I'm definitely hoping that they come back around next year, and they continue to grow, and be very, very successful.
Yeah, like, and it's funny because when you go to that, everybody gets that game face when you go to compete, but I've always I've always sort of approached it differently. I mean, I'm very nervous preparing for a tournament and competition, but the minute I step into the venue, even when I did the MMA match, the day I stepped into that place, I'm like, well, here I am. You're going to compete or you're going to leave. So I'm going to compete. So my nerves kind of go out the window when I hit the room. But with that Tap Cancer Out, again, the environment and the fact that everybody's there, yeah, we're going to come in here and we're going to train, or I'm sorry, we're going to compete. We're going to really go at each other to win. But the cause is always sort of hovering over there, that we're all here to help people and do something good. So like you said, that environment there was just so different to me than a lot of other tournaments and places I'd been to. I think for that reason.
Yeah, and I don't know. Maybe it was just them, or the fact that when it came to tournaments, competing in general, I was I wasn't gonna say I was against it, but I was like, you know what, it's not for me. But doing that first tournament, man, and just leading up to it, I was more anxious before the tournament happened versus the day
Oh
that I
yeah.
was there. Because when I got there, I felt at home, because obviously it was like everyone there was doing jujitsu, so everyone's there for the same reason.
Right.
And I'm thinking, okay, well, maybe because I'm not up yet. So time goes by, the kids division, the teen division, and then like the adult division starts. So I'm changing and getting warmed up, and my training partners there was there with me. They was like, "You good? How you feeling? You nervous?" And I'm like, "I don't know. Like, I don't know how I feel
Yeah.
right now." It's like I'm anxious because I've never done it before, but not like, oh my god, well, is this gonna happen? Is this gonna happen? Blah blah blah. I was just
Yeah.
real chill until
Yeah.
when we got done. I was like, all right. But
Yeah, facts. I mean, that's the thing. Like I said, with my first one, I step on the mat, and right out of the gate, I adrenaline dump. I mean, I kid you not. The first time, this dude gets his hands on me, I mean, and this was one where I cut weight and everything. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm going to get ready. I usually walked around at 230. I'm pushing 250 now. Been a little lazy, but at that point, I dropped down to below 220 to get into. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to work hard. I'm going to eat right, yada yada. And man, that dude got his hands on me, and I literally had the adrenaline dump, and gas gone, completely gone. And I mean, this is at the time when I was running. I mean, I was running 8+ miles a day, several days a week, and this, that, and the other. So my conditioning was insane. But like, you already heard everybody say that there's being in shape, and then there's being in jiu-jitsu shape, and they are two different animals.
They are
And
very, very two different animals.
man, like I said, that dude got a hold of me, and my mind said, we're dying today, and everything shut down, and I had nothing to fight back with. Like, I literally was in a 1-round survival mode. He pointed me into next week, and then, won the match. And I'm like, I stood up and literally was like, maybe it's time to try karate or something. I mean, I was so discouraged, but, I get back, because I had like, again, speaking of tap cancer out, I was super excited. I was training. I had a young man in my neighborhood who was battling cancer. I had his name on my shirt. I'm going to go in there and just annihilate some fool for Chase. And then I got my ass handed to me, and I'm like, I probably should find a better way to improve my, to lead a charge on a cause, because this isn't it. And, but again, the motivation that come from that, what that did to me is, like you said, if you're ever going to compete, I tell everybody, man, just find your smallest little local tournament and go in there with with zero intentions of winning. Go in with the intentions of getting that experience to go, what does this feel like when it's not a guy I see 3 days a week, when it's not my dude, when it's not when it's a complete stranger who is trying to impress his buddies or his girlfriend or whoever, showed up to watch him that day. Go see what that feels like. And after the first one, I don't think people should make the decision whether they want to compete or not until they do that. Because I do think that goes down 2 roads for people. You do it once and you're like, nope, I'm out. Or you go, no, this is for me, but I need to do it better. So, that's the way I look at competition when people say, hey, should I compete? I'm like, I feel everybody should try it once. And I think after the one time, you'll know. And man, there's nothing wrong with the guy who never does it again. You keep training just for the enjoyment, for the, the social aspect. Easily the majority of my gym doesn't compete. But they don't work any less hard than the rest of us until, we're really ramping up. But these guys are in there getting it just like everybody else. But I do think that that's one way to, give it that first shot and see what you think. Don't, I wouldn't dismiss competition because of nerves. Because again, I've competed a lot and I still get nervous until I walk in the room. To be honest, now I'm at the point where as a parent, I get the same way watching my kid, my son play football. I'm more nervous when I go to coach guys than I ever am now on the mat myself. Because, when I'm on the mat, I feel like I at least have an opportunity to really control this situation through my skill and my knowledge. But when I'm trying to coach one of my students, it's like, without having the strings on their arms like a puppet, I'm only tossing out a few suggestions, and whether they capitalize on it, I don't know. So I get more nervous watching my people compete than I do myself now, by far.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
which is, people don't get that. It's crazy. You're like, what do you care? You're just sitting there. I'm like, no, man, there's so much invested in that guy succeeding, for me to be able to go, yes, I did him a good service, by training him for however long, and it worked,
Yeah, because I got 2 guys that I train with who are MMA fighters, and at the time of this recording, they both fight Friday. And
gotcha.
So I've cornered one guy. I think maybe 3 of his. Wait, is it 2 or 3 of his fights? But anyway, yeah, I've trained with this guy every 3-4 days a week. Hang out with this guy, talk to this guy every single day, and I know what he's capable of. But watching him go in that cage and that cage door closes, I'm like, oh man. You definitely do get nervous for somebody else versus yourself. But go ahead.
I'll ask you that, because that's funny. We have this conversation a lot in my gym. So when you're cornering, or if you're mat coaching a guy at a tournament, or what's your sort of approach or stance on, do you actually call out direction? How do you call that? How do you coach on, if you got a guy? I'll tell you where I'm going is, so for me, I'm literally like, listen, I want you guys to shut up. I want you to tell me what time I have, and I want you to tell me my points. And I don't want to hear anything else, because you start yelling out, hey, do this, do that guy's going to counter it. But there's people, you'll hear at some tournaments, like, it's a step-by-step, and some people, it works. But I was just curious kind of what your philosophy is when you're coaching a guy. How do you approach that?
So, I necessarily haven't coached anyone at a tournament per se. But when I corner my friend, my training partner, I don't necessarily throw out moves. I'll just like let him know, like, hey, watch this, or you know what to do at this point. Work your game. I don't be like, hey, throw this or throw that, because obviously it's not like the other person's not listening.
Right.
But
yeah.
even in the gym, it depends on the belt ranking. If like a white belt is rolling with a blue belt, I won't call out anything necessarily like detailed. I'll just say, hey, watch your bases, or hey, fix this, watch what you're doing, slow down, so on and so forth. Right. But I'm like, no, you got a triangle there. No, you got a No, I don't do anything like that. I don't telegraph nothing.
Yeah. No, that's like I said, we always tell our guys in our gym, like, listen, because, if one of the coaches can't make it to a smaller tournament on a weekend, we're like, listen, when you go, just tell them their time and tell them their points. That's all we need you to do, because they have to do everything else on their own. You start giving stuff, they're going to counter it. So make sure they know where they set on time and points. And I think that's probably the best thing. But yeah, I mean, you'll see some stuff. If it's wide open, yell it out. But there's a good, it's a race at that point. Can you shoot that move before they counter you? We'll see. But yeah, just something I always like asking guys that are, been around a little bit. How do you go, or how do you approach that?
I've always tell them, like, especially when they're, if they can, like, if I can sense they're trying to set up a submission, I'll be like, okay, slow down.
God, yes, absolutely.
Slow down. Because if you don't, and I'll say this, like, if you don't, you're going to miss it, because they're like, okay, what I'm going to miss? But I'm like, no, slow down and feel what you're doing. And then, they usually find it, or sometimes they don't. But yeah, after the match, I'll be like, okay, look, this is what you need to fix. This is what happened. Blah, 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 yada, yada, yada.
Yeah, I'm with you. That's a good, I'm pretty much, I'll spend an entire 5 minutes, other than giving them the points and the time. I will just basically spend the whole 5 minutes going, breathe, settle, good. That's it. It. Those 3 words, they'll hear those 3 words from me repeatedly. And if I don't say anything, it's pretty much, you're screwed, man. I mean, I don't know. I got nothing for you, because you're getting a bad spot. But outside that, there'll be a breathe. Okay, settle there. Like you said, you get it. Somebody gets to a mount, they immediately want to start to attack. I'm like, no, settle. There we go. Yeah, hold them down a minute, cook them, something like that. But yeah, calling out moves, I've always found that to be. I mean, if I have any sense and somebody's doing that, I'm going to be ready to counter it, or at least that's my plan. Who knows? Some people have told me, I didn't even hear you. You know what I mean? I've got a very loud, carrying voice, and I've had my guys go, sorry, coach, I didn't hear a word you said. I'm like, hey, man, I get it. That tunnel vision and zone out hits sometimes, and, you're in full survival early on, and there was no amount of coaching that was going to help you. You were just in there winging it. That's fine, too,
So do you, champ. Just do you. But
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Like I've, since I've been on both sides, competing and coaching, and yeah, it's two dynamics. It's two sides of the same coin, because I don't get nervous for myself when I'm rolling or when I'm competing. Granted, I only did one, but I'm itching. I am definitely itching to do another tournament. So
yeah. Well, and I'll tell you, it's funny, because again, listening to your other podcast, man, I feel you so much, because so when I go, this is the good story, going into 2018, the World Masters, right? We fly to Vegas. We're there, get checked in, everything, and understanding that I was heading, I was with the IBJJF. You've got to be 200 for super heavy. You have to be 221 in the gi day of the event, right? And I'm like, man, that's a tough one for me. And then I'm like, so I'm going to go to Vegas. I'm going to be in Vegas for 3 to 4 days before I compete. I'm like, I don't have the self-control for this. So I talked to all my coaches and everybody. They're like, oh, you know what? Listen, I've been out there 100 times, and your ultra heavies or unlimiteds, I've never seen anybody over 265 or something like that. You'll be fine. You train with guys bigger than that. And I'm like, man, that's what I wanted to hear. Cool. I'm not cutting weight. I register for unlimited. We walk into the venue, me and Scott, we're walking down the ramp to get our bags and check in. And I look down the ramp, and there is the biggest Samoan human being I've ever seen. And we were joking. So I look at Scott, and I'm joking with him, and Scott, he's messing with me. He goes, that dude's going to be your opponent. And I'm like, no, dude, that guy. And again, I'm giving myself not enough credit, I guess. I'm like, no, that dude looks a lot younger than me. Because, the Masters is 30 and up. And when I went out there, I'm over 40 already. I'm like, no, man, that cat's way younger than me. So we walk on by. Scott says, now, if I found out he was I said, well, if he's in my division, I guess we'll just see what happens. And he said, well, if he was in my division, I'd go home right now. And I'm like, well, we're here. We're doing it. So
right, we're here now.
Long story short, that's the day before. We check in, get our bags, go to the hotel, dinner, blah, blah, blah. The next day, and I'm not a guy, some people will start looking at brackets and start Google searching opponents. And I'm like, look, man, I'm not fighting Gordon Ryan today or anything. I'm not going to find film on these guys at my level that are going to be any benefit. So I don't research opponents. I just show up, here we are. So the next morning, I check in at whatever time, step on the mat, look across there. All right, first match is, Jason Ramey and this other, his name was Jason something as well. And I look over there and I'm like, you have got to be kidding me. There's that dude. So my first opponent at my first World Masters in 2018 was over 400 pounds. And I'm walking in there and I weighed myself just for fun. And I was at like 223. so I'm like, yeah. So next time you might want to cut that weight. So like you said, the dude got a hold of me, and the first time he threw me around like a rag doll. The benefit I had was I turned my back and I dropped down in sort of a turtle position. So we hand fought on our feet for a little bit, right? But then once he tosses me to the ground, like I said, like I was a child. So I turtle up, and I was honestly just preparing to die. I'm like, yeah, this was a bad idea. And then I hear this dude breathing in my ear so heavy at like 90 seconds into this match. And I thought, well, if I have anything in this point right now, it's probably a little bit better conditioning. So I shot out, I threw my legs back in a sprawl real quick. And as he shot in, because he just wanted to keep me down, and I knew that when he shot in that one time, I ended up hooking over. I got him underneath the neck with a 10-finger choke from standing and got a submission like so fast. I couldn't, like my first win right there. I'm like, oh, I can't believe it. So that was to me for me, that defining moment where, I had almost canceled. I had checked out on this event, I'm like, well, I'm going to lose my first match and go home now. This sucks. and that whole, the size doesn't matter is an absolute lie. We all know that. Yeah. However, there are ways to get around it. And I always say that. I tell my students now, I'm like, I talk about that match all the time. I'm like, I wrote that off. My first opponent at Worlds was 400 pounds, but he had a neck just like everybody else. Yep. And I found it, And the best part about that is Andrew Holbrook was training me. He was in the UFC for a little bit, one of the guys from IBG and Indy. And he showed me that choke the Friday before I left for Vegas. He showed me that very choke, and this dude landed in it that following Wednesday or whatever it was. So just, those moments when you're like, oh, thank goodness, I'm glad Andrew showed me this. Otherwise, I was dying today.
Was about to be over.
Yeah. So then I went into my second match, and he was a super tough guy from Travis Luter camp, I think, out in Texas. So I fought the biggest guy and won. And then the next match, I fought the toughest guy that I saw all day. He was a monster. I ended up getting him with a cross collar choke. And I tell everybody, I wish I could take credit. He just refused to open his guard because he had me stuck in his closed guard, and he essentially choked himself until he was, about unconscious. And then he tapped out of panic, and all he had to do was open his legs and he would have been fine. But then the last guy, I got a little overzealous and cocky, and one poor elbow position and a bow and arrow choke, and he slipped out, and they called it a pass for him, and he won on points. And I was like, just sitting there like, the least of the competition I saw all day just took me out of this thing, So that's the way jiu-jitsu goes, man. Again, I beat myself, but it was such a great experience and so much fun. But to overcome those first two guys and then just to lose on that one, you're like, well, okay.
Right. So when I went up against the guy I went up against, his name is Kenneth Kirkland, by the way. Finally,
did you find him? Okay, good.
I'll say, okay, yeah. So you've been listening. So I did find him.
Listening. Yeah, I'm following the saga here.
Yeah, so I'm going to find this guy, man. So I did find him. Another guy who's I'm doing a interview with. I think next week. He's been listening too, so he's been asking me about it, and he messaged me last night. It was like, "Hey, is this the guy?" And I was like, "Oh snap, that's him!" So I messaged his school, and they did get back to me today. Said they were going to pass the message on to him because I want him on the show too.
Absolutely, man.
But man, when I tell you, like when we got on the mats, we slapped and bumped, and when he got a grip on me, and I was like, "Oh, this is about to be bad." Yeah, because I couldn't I couldn't swim under, I couldn't move him. So we're we're going, he's pushing me back towards the scorekeeper table, and the ref stopped us. But right before he stopped us, he goes for his takedown, and I think I was about 240 at this during this tournament, and I felt like I was 2 pounds.
Yeah,
because it was like how fast and how quick I was like, oh snap, I am upside down.
Right.
And I was like, oh, this is about to be a long day.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And that's what happened to me. So, I go back, I did a few tournaments since then and did pretty well. And again, I'll tell you what, losing is the best thing for you. You know what I mean? It
Mm-hmm.
truly is, as hard as that is to admit, because I mean, look, it's going to happen one day, like that, Gordon Ryan's going to lose eventually one day, but man, what a stud. But how you respond to that loss is what really gets you. But so to tell, another story real briefly, when I started getting good, I felt like I'm doing better. I've won a lot of I've won competitions again. So I'm like, great. So last year, again, I go back out to Vegas and, so it's one of those things where you're like, you know what, I'm going to redeem myself. So my first opponent, I step out there and I could, not to sound arrogant. this was for me, but I'm like, I could have beat him probably earlier. I found a couple of opportunities, but knowing that in 2018, I lost because I botched a bow and arrow choke. I purposely, squashed this dude, rolled him up, got him into that attack mount position and hit that bow and arrow choke to get that win. So I won that first match last year with a bow and arrow choke, honestly, just to tell myself that I could do it after blowing it the first time. So, those were, what do you learn from losing and what do you take from it and how do you make yourself better is, again, one of the huge aspects of this. I mean, that's what I like most about it. I'm going to compete again and I'm going to lose again. But so I've hit World Masters twice and gotten third. The next time I'll do it, I'll probably be a black belt. It'll be another year or two. And that's the one where I'm like, you know what? If I can go out there again and get myself a first place, but as a black belt, I'm fine with those third place. Those other two third place finishes, even though they weren't what I went out there for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because in jiu-jitsu, you either win or you learn.
Yeah,
that's the best advice I've been given since I've been on this journey, man. You either win or you learn.
Right, absolutely, and it's funny because I got guys. We say that, and everybody says that a lot, and I want to go on record as saying it is 100% the truth. But when I first started training at IBG, Pat McPherson, the coach up there, and again, he was Chris Lytle's coach his entire UFC career. I mean, the dude's been around. He's an amazing coach. Goes to Thailand and trains and teaches kickboxers in Thailand. I mean, this American that goes to teach guys at Tiger in Thailand is that's how good he is.
And that's
anyway,
very, very big prominent school over there.
Yeah,
Probably the biggest
absolutely.
Prominent school over there.
Yeah, I mean he's a very, very and incredibly, like, you meet the dude, humble, nicest guy. You would not know the murderer inside this man. You know what I mean? Like, the ability this guy walks around with all day is insane. But he's such a cool dude. But I remember, again, I'm learning, and in those days, like, I'm brand new in MMA or combatives whatsoever. I'd never, besides these two charity boxing matches, and I would literally get off work at 4:00. And the MMA class started at 4:30. So when I got a hold of Pat, I said, hey, I know this guy. Like, yeah, come on in and check it out. So I get up there. First day, they beat the brakes off of me. And I'm not kidding you. For the rest of the time, I would leave my office at 4:00, getting ready to head up there. And I would start, like, devising plans in my mind of how to get out of it. Like, I'd be like, man, maybe something was going to catch on fire and I got to go back. And I can't, like, how do I get out of practice today without looking like a wimp and all this? Because I'm just like, these guys are killing me. But old Pat, one day we're in there and somebody gets submitted on the ground and a guy he says, hey, man, that's the way it works here. You either win or you learn. And from the back of the building, you hear Coach McPherson go, that's some shit a loser would say. So every time, like, even yesterday, a guy in my group chat for our academy posted that. He goes, it's okay, guys. You either win or you learn. And I always put in quotations. I'm like, that's some shit a loser would say, Pat McPherson. But it is, I will go on record and say that it is a fact and I believe it, but it was just one of the, in my time in martial arts, I'm like, what a discouraging moment from a guy who absolutely knows what he's saying. I mean,
right.
My local content expert on martial arts just said, no, that's what losers say. I'm like, oh, okay. But yeah, it's
like,
good times.
We know you're joking, but it still stings a little bit. It stings just a
hurts.
little bit.
Yeah, that hurts. But no, again, and it's obviously, besides my family, this, I mean, I've been in the fire service, I've been in the military, the community that comes from this and the fun that we have, man, it's like, it's almost, sometimes you got to go, I can't believe we get to do this, man. Like, so, and the example, what really showed us all that was people who were training during that COVID lockdown, I think really got a feel of, oh my, man, what would it be like if we didn't have this, because we didn't for even, I mean, some people, I know people who still got, there was some dudes still hitting in the garage or doing this or privates or whatever. But man, to not get the train, and not because I'm not feeling it today or I'm a little busy, but you are not allowed to, and you are unable to train for whatever, a month, 2 months. Man, what did that do for all of us as far as the appreciation of what we get to do in this.
Man, I'm telling you, because during that time, it was like, okay, they don't know how long we're going to be on shutdown. And
Yeah.
then it's like that week turned to 2 weeks. And at this point, I'm just like fiending for jujitsu.
Right.
And then I think it was like maybe like the third week or so when they was like, okay, small gatherings, only, so many stipulations to do so. But, obviously you have to wear a mask.
Yeah.
So me and my instructor, I was working with him again at this time, called me in his office and he's like, all right, this is what we're going to do. So he had the training mask and he cut a cut the like, a little disposable mask and put it in the his training mask.
Right.
So he was like, all right, so tomorrow we're gonna try this out. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna order mine and we're gonna try it out. So yeah, we we died because we was off the mat for like 2 weeks. But yeah, that was the lengths we were willing to go just to be able to train jujitsu.
Oh yeah.
So like we're gonna make a filtration system, put in this mask, and we just gonna train as best way we can.
Yeah.
So.
No, there was some creativity, man, for sure. I mean, everybody's got their view. I mean, but at the end of the day, I honestly believe that the immune systems for those of us that were already, training in jiu-jitsu were probably pretty strong, just given all the things, all the things, how many times you get a couple drops of sweat or spit drop in your eye, and under any other normal circumstances, you would have just checked that, you'd be done for the day, But I, even just a couple of days ago, I'm rolling with Scott, and he's like, "Oh man, sorry, I got his sweat dripping in my eyes." And I was like, "Nah, man, it's cool. We'll finish the round." Anywhere else, in any other environment in your life, you're gonna run away from that. You're done. But you're gonna like, "Oh no, we still got 2 minutes. I'm not gonna go worry about it." But so just how, yeah, we could have all been fine. Who knows? But yeah, that shutdown though. I mean, I think the biggest thing we got was the appreciation. I mean, I really do, and yeah, the creativity as well. I mean, it almost turned it into, it kind of. Some of these guys, it was like the old prohibition days with alcohol. They're hiding out trying to do jujitsu and crawl spaces or sheds or whatever, where nobody could see you, just so you didn't have to give it up completely. Or finding that 2 to 3 people that I know. Okay, this guy's either they've already had it or they're whatever the case is. Just so I feel safe training with only these 2 people, but it's either that or we don't train, and that's not an option.
That's not.
So
an
yeah,
option.
it was a tough time. I mean, like you said, my group chat for the gym's blowing up with pictures of sad people on treadmills and, sitting at home in their gis and just like, just as jokes, because we got to the point where we're like, what do we do now? I guess we're going to have to try to, make some fun with it or embrace it because we don't know how long it's going to be. So.
Yeah, because like like on Facebook they'll have like your memories of like what you posted around this time last year, and yeah, so when we were around that time of shutdown, I was making posts about like day 1 without no jujitsu, and it's like, yeah, I come to find out I got a family here, a whole wife and 2 kids. Let me see how they are, and then like day 2, like they seem pretty nice. And
yeah,
then, like,
I didn't know I could refinish a kitchen table in one day.
Right.
But here we are, yeah.
Like, what is
I make the best banana
what
bread
is this
in
internet?
town.
Yeah.
Right.
It's hilarious, man. But man, do you if you got anything else you want to add or ask, definitely want you to shout out your school, man. The floor is yours.
Yeah, no, man, I appreciate, like I said, having the platform, just to set and chat. I think it's been fun talking to you. I'm really enjoying listening to your podcast take off. And anybody who's listening to these, if Lamar hits you up like, hey man, you want to talk, do it. It's just, again, there's we always joke about the CrossFitters, like, they CrossFit because they won't shut up about it. Man, we're worse.
We're way worse. We're way worse.
We know it. Yeah. I mean, it's bad. But at the end of the day, I'm glad old Jay, old crotchety Jay showed up at my church one day and was like, you need to come to the college and check this out. Because I couldn't imagine what my, the past 8 years, and again, I'll mention this again. I'm not ashamed of this because I think it's important for people to hear, having some personal hardships and poor decisions in my life, just before I started training in jiu-jitsu, I was medicated on Lexapro and stuff for anxiety, depression, things like that. I mean, I had a lot going on, as everybody does. And the more I got into jiu-jitsu and the more frequently I trained, and again, this was not through doctors, suggestion. So definitely follow your doctor's orders. Let me give you that disclaimer. But I finally slowly weaned myself off, and I quit taking the medication. And what I found, again, with no research other than my own personal experiences, I get as much or more psychological and personal relief and physical benefit from jiu-jitsu than I ever did from a medication, just by getting together with these people and doing this. So, again, I'm not going to compete, or you're sitting on the fence, man. I tell people, because we offer a 2-week trial at our gym, check it out. And I had a guy who came yesterday to start his 2-week trial. He came back this morning and signed up. Awesome. I've never had, you know what I mean? I always tell people, I don't know anyone who kind of likes jiu-jitsu. I don't know that person yet. I've never met the one who I haven't met the one who kind of likes it. You're in or out, I think. And so I encourage everyone, give it a shot. You get on the mat that first day and you're like, ew, not for me. That's fine, man. But I think that you'll know in a day, maybe 2. And I think you'll regret not having tried it if you don't.
Yeah. And I say this almost every episode, as you know, like just give jiu-jitsu a try. Like just go out and find a gym. A lot of gyms do offer maybe a week trial or a day, a free class just to kind of see before you can sign up. But yeah, man, just give it a shot, man. You don't know, how your life is going to turn out after you start training. Cause yeah, I can, contest to that too. 5 years ago, if I never would have met my best friend, who got me to join jiu-jitsu, there's no telling where I would have been right now.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, just in all aspects, how would things turn out? Who knows? I mean, I would not be mentally or physically where I am today. No. I wouldn't be sitting here watching my own facility grow like it is. Because again, I wouldn't be where I am in that business without Scott. And, I roll into Stockman Jiu-Jitsu, Carlson Gracie, and meet this guy who under any other circumstance I would have never met and hung out with. And, here he and I are, now partnered up to run this amazing thing that we got going on down here. So, to say it's life-changing or can be life-changing it's not a cliche, it is actually it is a fact.
There's definitely an understatement saying that it can change your life.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. But that's the end of today's episode. I would like to thank my guest Jason again for coming on the show and sharing his knowledge and experience with us today. Please go and follow our Facebook and Instagram page to stay up to date on all future episodes. This has been Talk Your Jits podcast. Keep rolling, keep grinding, and remember, long live jiu-jitsu. Have a great day.